Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar, Responsible AI, Managing Risks and Enhancing Trust. My name is Shaumik Ghosh. I'm Senior Assistant Editor with the Economic Times CIO, and I'm glad to be your moderator for today. Now, as AI adoption accelerates, organizations face growing challenges in ensuring transparency, mitigating risks, and fostering trust among the stakeholders. In this webinar, we will explore the strategies to align AI initiatives with ethical principles, regulatory requirements, and business goals. And to do that, let me welcome to today's webinar Harshil Turakhia. He's the Senior Brand Technical Specialist at IBM. Now, Harshil has expertise in logical and analytical cloud-based, commodity-based, and appliance-based data and AI solutions. He's also adept at all stages of product lifecycle management with a particular focus on customer centricity. That's exactly what our audience is looking for. Harshil, thank you so much for joining us. Looking forward to your insights and also, of course, what Watson brings to the table.
Hey, thanks, Shaumik, for this wonderful introduction, and looking forward for an exciting session. So yeah.
Absolutely. Now, audience, we want the session to be extremely interactive. We've got a couple of polls to be engaging with you as well. Do participate in those polls. Share your insights. Give us a picture of how you see AI at your organization, and also do remember to share your questions on the Q&A box. Harshil here would be more than happy to take it up and answer it for you live. All right. With that said, Harshil, over to you.
Super. Thanks, Shaumik, once again, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining and taking out time for this session. I hope my screen is up. Shaumik, a quick thumbs up will be really,
Very good.
super. So so as we all know, AI has already grown its footprints multifolds across the industries, across the domain, and I am here, not here to emphasize more about why or what, whether we should embark on this AI as a journey or not. We as an IBM see a significant growth where industries have now start to move plus AI to AI plus everything else, right? So AI is in their forefront of each and every decision making process, and it becomes extremely important to have an eye for AI, right? So it's very important to have a close lens around your AI based decision making process in order to have it responsible, explainable, and trustable AI, right? So that is the whole agenda for today's topic and today's session. But before we move ahead, bases are, across 1,000+ interactions only within India with a lot of our customers. There are some key ground facts, or I would say key truths of AI that we have discovered, and that is what we are seeing on the screen. What bases our interaction with customer, it is now been proved even by a lot of discoveries as well, that there is no one model which is best suited for all your business problem. DeepSeek recently, again, and revolution within AI LLMs has proven that technology, that there is no monopoly or one model which is best suited for all business problems. So you need to have multiple models as well as multimodal capabilities to solve business problem statements that we have, right? So that is one
Absolutely.
multimodal aspect. The second aspect is hybrid cloud, right? So we have seen a lot of enterprise that show some reluctance to go on cloud or have their sensitive data on cloud. So then there are set of use case which can be delivered only on cloud, while some set of use case which are predominantly within the behind the firewall on the data center, where most of the PI data relies, right? Especially for the BFSI sector, pharma sector, etc., etc. So then what is the answer, right? So the answer is the capability to have a AI based decision making tool which is both hybrid cloud, right? Multi cloud, hybrid cloud, on prem plus on cloud, etc., etc. The third important aspect, and this is the center of today's discussion, is on the governance aspect. uh, we have all come across terminology called as data governance, and I think in every enterprise there is some or the other aspect of governance that is built, but that is predominantly from data perspective. What we have essentially talking about is to have a complete and holistic data and AI governance. And how do you do that, right? So there are a lot of models, and we have seen a lot of cases where especially the Gen AI aspect, where there is a lot of hallucination, there is a lot of hatred, abusive or profanity response added to your LLM's output, right? So how do you have a guardrails around it? Is what is the main ask from the enterprise that we talk about. uh, the fourth aspect is again, which drives the entire funding into this AI initiative, right? So that is the major question about any organization will say, okay, what is am I going to get in return with all the investment that I make in AI? So ROI aspect is again very important. How do you scale your AI based decision making process, right, across multiple BUs, across multiples departments within an enterprise to get maximum benefit out of this return on the investment. And the fifth and the ground truth remains always constant. The data matters a lot. So the quality, the entire essence around the data, the quality around the data, ensuring that you have right mix of your structured married with your additional unstructured data input, and how well it gels to have a combined decision making process. So these are some of the ground truths that have emerged across our discussion when we get into any AI based decision making process. And this is these are boardroom discussion, guys. It is not that you would see a BU or a unit or a center of excellence talking about it. It's completely at the board level. And there are building blocks around AI, right? So it starts with the use cases, and which includes all these cycles, right? Where the first and foremost is the data, then how well the data is governed, the how strong the base is around data, and then you have a lot of AI based agents, and I think there is a new wave which talks about agentic AI and all, right? So how do you create those agents, or customize your agents with models assistant to have those multiple automation infused in your complete and end-to-end use cases. So that's where we will start, and we will start to scratch around what the problem is. Let's first understand the problem in detail and then talk about solution, right? So we talk about data being an oil or a fuel, right? But we all know that crude or oil is very much efficient when it's refined. So the refinement process is AI that brings into the data, right? But what we understand is only or I would say this slide says less than 1% of data, but it's even lesser. That that enterprise data gets used in your Gen AI leverage decision making process, right? So you must have come across multiple large language models which talks about training into billions and billions of parameters. But these are all open data. Yeah, how much enterprise data gets contributed as part of this is what we need to ask the question, right? And if you talk about the AI valuation or value creation curve, there's a tipping point, right, where we see a lot of inhibitors or inflection points, and these are predominantly around skills. While there are a lot of foundation models, whether it is large language models or small language models that are available as an option, but which one to choose when, right? And what platform to use, how do we make efficient use of these models? These are some of the prohibitors that we see. Data, of course, is a challenge, and when we talk about data, one of the Gartner, or I would say the leading analyst survey, says that around 46% of issues for your AI based use case is dragged down as a data quality issue. So data is still a problem, and it is very essential to have that strong base to build lots more AI use case out of it, right? So data again, and then once we have some models productionized, it all depends upon how ethical, how trustworthy, or how explainable that AI decision making process is. So these are some of the tipping points when an industry or enterprise looks to migrate from plus AI to AI plus everything else, right? How do we help? So that is where IBM has has a end-to-end platform which we call it as watsonx, to ensure that you can build AI at scale for your enterprise use cases, right? And when we talk about Watson X, it is further classified into these critical pillars that you see, right? The very first aspect is around Watson X dot data. It is very essential to have the data formation, the base form very strong, on top of which you can generate insight using watsonx.ai, and then govern the complete ecosystem using watsonx.governance. And you have your watsonx orchestrate and code assistant for your agentic AI use cases. So these are some of the key offerings which are well drafted as part of a complete data and AI foundation layer that you see over here, from left to right, right, where which talks about your forming or data persistent layer, which could be in the form of your data sources, database, warehouses, lake houses of the world, and a strong data fabric layer in between, right, which talks about governance, integration, and it is across the, when we talk about governance, both data as well as AI. And what we are going to double click in today's session is how do we generate or make best use of AI, data, and governance aspect, right? And why it is important, right? A survey says that almost 90% of AI initiatives that organization has taken initiatives that organization have taken, hardly 5 to 7% of that sees the light to the production. Rest all still remains in their POC environment or a sandbox environment or an experiment zone. And the reason for that is you need AI ready data for you to productionize it. So let's talk about how IBM solves this data problem with watsonx.data. But before we do that, Shomik, how about getting a just checking, getting our first roll out and see what are the various barriers that we see, or our audience see in today's data and AI journey that they have.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think our host just read my mind there, and we've got the first poll for you. So
Correct.
we know that a lot of our users, a lot of you people in the attendees list today, you're using AI in some form or the other. We would want to know what's the top barrier in scaling AI implementation. And these are three of the most commonly cited ones, but we want to zero in on the biggest challenge out here. We've got skills and talent shortages, of course, one. Second is the data complexity. And the third is trust and ethical concerns. You can also have cases where all three of these are equally important for you. In that case, you can select all of the above. All right. We'll have the poll open for another, let's say, 10 seconds.
Sure.
And then let's close the poll after that, Harshil, and then we take a look. We'll also take
Absolutely.
a look at whether the poll results are aligned to what your expectations were.
Correct. That will be helpful.
Absolutely. Okay, all of the above,
All three above, as expected. Yeah.
all three, yeah. But then a lot of them, of course, talk about skills and talent shortages. That's a good 20% of the people out there,
Yeah.
followed closely by data complexity. Is this in line with what you've been expecting, Harshil? Harshil is.
Absolutely. And let
Mhm.
me, some good news, right? So I was expecting all of the above, and the way the session has been planned, guys, we are going to cover each of these aspects, right? So the way the session has been planned in such a way that we'll look at how do we solve the data complexity. We then mitigate the skills and talent related it, and how do we use the platform to generate AI insight. And lastly, we ensure that the decision making process is completely trustable, explainable, and responsible. So I think that perfectly aligns, Shomik, with the way we have planned as part of the session goes.
Great to know that. We've got a couple of questions coming in. Nupur, you're asking about virtual data. We're going to park your question for now. It'll probably be one of the things that Harshil is going to take us through during the course of the webinar. Shalini is asking, can we have a recording of the session? Sure, Shalini, you can visit the ETCIO website under the webinar section. You'll be able to find the recording of this for this webinar. Give it about a week's time. You'll have this entire session online on ETCIO. All right,
Perfect.
go
Let
on,
let
Harshil.
I mean, these are some great questions, guys. Let the question flow in, and make it most out of it so that we make it an interactive session. Okay, so coming back to our problem, right? So we had more, I think 52%, if I'm not wrong, talking about problems across all three sections, and I think 20 odd percent were specifically highlighted on fixing the data related issue, right? So how do we how IBM helps them, right? So talking about, sorry, I think I skipped a slide. Yeah, perfect.
Mhm.
So talking about the data portfolio that we have, right? So products and capabilities that cut across the complete data portfolio or productivity. So as you can see, there are list of data sources, be it on-prem, on a public cloud of customer's choice. Sorry, I think there is some issue with the sensor, the light. I'm in one of my meeting room. I'll have to just wave my hand so that the lights are back to normal. Apologies for this. Yeah. So talking about our data portfolio, so we have data sources which are cut across on-prem or on multi-cloud or a hybrid cloud or a cloud of the customer's choice, right? Then irrespective of wherever the data is, we have a layer, or I would say, let me use my pointers. Yeah. So irrespective of wherever this data is, we have out of the box connectors to connect and get the data tap in with the various uh, tool set available as part of the data integration layer. Whether you need data in batch, so we have a ETL tool. Whether the data is needed in real time, so we have a stream set or a CDC kind of a capability, or complete observability on your data pipeline, so we have data band. So all those aspects are covered. Again, what we are going to double click over here is of watsonx.data. It's an open lakehouse solution with when you have then you have a data intelligence layer to generate, give that self service access to the data at the same to the user. At the same time, you have a complete lineage and traceability of your data attribute right from the time it got ingested into the platform till it get operationalized, right? So complete lineage capabilities, and of course, a data marketplace and MDM session before you go into the data science and Gen AI, and that is what we are going to double click. The aspect that I want to highlight is that irrespective of whatever your underneath platform or I would say infrastructure is, the platform is infra agnostic and can be hosted on infrastructure of your choice. What I mean by that is, let's say if your majority data estate is on prem, the entire platform can be hosted on prem, but for the enterprises who are born in cloud or who have migrated to cloud, this entire platform can be lifted and shifted onto the cloud. So infrastructure does not becomes a vendor or a kind of a lock-in for you. You can switch the infrastructure depending upon your use and your requirement, and a complete end-to-end data security layer from the data perspective. Now, before double clicking on it, what are the typical, I mean, we just highlighted on one of the problem statement related to data, right? But then if we double click on it, what are the inflection points within data, right, or data issues? So what we see is more data now with the increase in unstructured data or the multiple source of the data. You see there are less than one third of tech leaders but who strongly agrees that their enterprise data does not meet the quality that they want, right? And what they want for generating use cases. We discussed about data being or multi-located on-prem, on cloud. So there are 80% of enterprises, 82% of enterprises believe that there are a lot of data silos. With growing in data, there is also grow in multiple formats that each data gets stored. There are some data in Avro, Parquet, Org, etc., etc. Right? So there are multiple formats, and we discussed about the quality. Right? Again, more than 80% of enterprise leaders says that the data quality that the data scientists of the world or prompt engineers of the world or analysts of the world have to operate, there are a lot of issues in the quality, and these are all related to data challenges that we have. And on the right hand side, as you see, these are emerging data challenges as we embark more and more into Gen AI use cases. Now, how do we solve this, right? With IBM, we offer an open data lakehouse solution. And why do we call it as open? You will know in few slides, right? So on the right hand side, as you see, there are multiple slices of this solution, and let's try and peel each of these slides and double click what do we have as an offer, what do we offer as a solution and why it is different. The very first or the bottom layer that you see over here is the infrastructure layer. As I said, the entire technology stack is built on Reddit OpenShift. So that is where the infrastructure is no longer a vendor lock-in for this platform. You can host the same platform on Azure, AWS, Google, on-prem, or a combination of any of these, right? So it is infra agnostic in true sense. The other good part that we have seen is that your compute and storage are completely decoupled. So you can have a growing storage. What does it mean? That you don't necessarily have to go grow your compute, since they are decoupled from each other, right? So you can store any data, open data format, as you can see over here. But yeah, this is an S3 compliant object store, so any form of data can be stored over here. The hero element is the complete governance layer on top of it. So you would find a lakehouse solution in market, but then there is a separate add-on governance module which you'll have to plug with that solution. The best part about this offering is that governance is inbuilt, right? And the metadata management is inbuilt as part of the solution. As we talked about open source data format, this is completely supported by Iceberg as a technology which supports your acidic transaction, or I would say data integrity in place, with having multi-format data to be stored in one place. And the superhero element of this platform is the multi-query engine. So two aspect, right? One is complete governance and multi-query. And what I mean by multi-query engine is that you cater multiple workloads out of this lakehouse, from right from BI to ad hoc query to Gen AI. And predominantly the flavor of lakehouse solution that we have in the market offers only one kind of query engine to solve all these nature of use cases, whether it is BI problem, ad hoc query, or Gen AI or AI ML capabilities.
Mhm.
With IBM watsonx data, you can address these problems with the specific query engine, or fit for purpose query engine is what I would say. If we further break each of these slice, this is where, this is what I was trying to highlight. You can deploy wherever you need. You can manage your ever growing data volume, which does not mean that if your data grows your compute also grows. No, it is completely decoupled. So you can have all type of data, whether it's structured, unstructured, all as part of one single storage layer. You have a end-to-end governance layer implemented as part of the platform, and multi-query engine, right? So we have talked about multi-query engine. There's a different way to represent this, right? And let me just highlight on this. When we talk about multi-query engine, what we are essentially doing is there is a choice of query engine available to our user depending upon what are the downstream jobs. So for example, if I am using, if I'm creating a dashboard or a BI report, or I'm using an ad hoc SQL query, why would I need Spark? I will use a SQL
Mm.
native query engine, which is Presto, which is meant for doing it. On the other hand, if I am a data scientist, I would like to generate a lot of insights. I would like to explore, use a lot of models, which is well suited for Spark. Typically, what we have seen, the solutions available in market keep Spark as a forefront of the query engine. And that is where your bill shock starts adding up, right? So that is where it is performant oriented. At the same time, it is cost effective. So that is the advantage that we bring onto the table. The other advantage is a vector database engine. Again, this is something that is a strong differentiator that has been put onto the table, because typically for Gen AI kind of a use cases, and we'll see in Gen AI section or the AI section, most common use case is RAG, retrieval augment generation, which requires your large data to be stored in small chunks or embeddings, which requires a special type of persistent layer, which we typically call as vector database. So this entire platform comes with the out of the box open source vector database as well. And the technologies that you see are completely open source, hence the name Open Data Lakehouse, right? Whether it is Spark, whether it is Presto, whether it is Milvus, whether it is Iceberg, Parquet, all these are open source. So no limitation of, or no reluctance of getting right skills from the market. You have plethoras of skill sets available in the market for the same, right? So that was, and if we double click, this is how it looks like, where you can connect it to multiple data sources that your data is. You can bring all that data into an S3 compliant object store. Of course, IBM also has its own object store, but we don't, tie or mandate to use our object store. Now, once the data is in object store, it can be stored in multiple formats that you see over here, over a layer of Iceberg, with an end-to-end governance layer and multi-query choice of engine, fit for purpose, I would say, engines for you to query your data which addresses or enhances the performance, at the same time optimize the cost drastically. And you bet, you go to your managers, leaders, and if you go and tell them, okay, I have some solution which can help us reduce cost, you will be you will be adding extra 2 stars on your shoulder if you put this solution in the place, right? So because then the reason I'm saying is cost optimization, cost reduction is every boardroom's discussion, right? So that is a comprehensive layer. We discussed about an end-to-end data layer, and this is where the open lakehouse typically sits as part of our database. It covers all the capabilities that we just now discussed, and that is where I end our topic on data capability, right? I guess we will take all the questions at the end, but if you have any questions related to data, feel free to post them. But uh, again, going back to our poll question, right? So there were three key inhibitors. One was data, the other
Right.
was on the AI, which talks about right skill sets, right platform, right models. How do
Right.
I select what is the best fit model? So that is what we are going to address in this section, where we introduce our second hero element, which we call it as watsonx.ai, to address all your AI related issues. But what are these issues, right? So again, let's revisit. In today's market, we have disparate data tools and models, right? And half of the time, the knowledge workers are confused what to use when.
Mhm.
That also introduce the skills and talent related shortages, and which increases the risk of your productionization or accuracy or time to market kind of a situation, right? Now, to address all this, we this is where our offering, which we call it as watsonx.ai. The reason why I brought the architecture slide up and explaining the capabilities later on is because I want to address one key attribute as part of this slide. So, all of you guys who are part of this webinar, I want you to take away one thing from this slide, is that when we talk about this AI, or let's say this AI community or the user community, predominantly what are the personas that strikes our mind? It could be data scientists, which deal with your AI ML models. And this is not a new terminology. Data scientists exist, now I think more than 8 to 10 years now. But
Yeah.
then there is a new breed of users, and which are the blue-eyed boys in an organization, right? Which is a job role called as prompt engineers.
Mhm.
So which are typically designated to work along with data scientists to embark on the Gen AI use cases. And by the way, when I say data scientist, I rather used it pretty loosely, but within data scientist, there are multiple personas. Uh,
Right.
if you ask me who are these, so typically what I have come across is that there are three personas or three key personas of data scientist. One
Mhm.
who likes to build their ML model pipelines with their hands by coding, and
Right.
predominantly they use programming language like Python or R. So they use editors like Jupyter Notebook or RStudio. I call them as programmer data scientist.
Right.
The second persona is the visual data scientist. How different are they from programmer data scientist? So uh, while a programmer data scientist will like to code the entire ML design for by their hand, this second persona, which is visual data scientist, will still build their ML pipelines by their hand, but not writing code. They'll drag
Mhm.
and drop the widgets from the visual interface and build their pipeline, whether it is data prep, hyper parameterization, feature engineering. They have all these drag and drop capabilities, and then they select an algorithm and they run it, right?
Right.
These are visual data scientists. The
Mhm.
third data scientists are more of a user based or business user, which we call it a citizen data scientist. Say, hello, I have engineers, data engineers, model engineers within my team. They are designated to work on the data and give me the right cut of data. Why would I build a pipeline? I will use that data and I'll tell system to generate insight for me, right? So this is all auto AI, auto ML kind of a capabilities. So what they
Mhm.
do is they take a cut of the data and then throw it to the tool, and they say, okay, now you generate model pipelines out of it and tell me what is the best model or best suited pipeline for me to generate insight. And then they expect system to do all the work. So the best part is this platform caters to all these personas of data scientists. So we have Jupyter Notebook and RStudio IDE that takes care of your programmer data scientist. We have SPSS Modeler that takes care of your visual data scientist, and Auto AI, which takes care of your citizen data scientist. By the way, what about the blue-eyed boy? Yeah, so the prompt engineer. So we have something called as Prompt Lab, Tuning
Okay.
Studio that are categorically designed from your point prompt engineers. So, and if you are a data engineer or a model engineer, hang on, we have something for you as well. Don't feel low. So you see something called as prepared data. So this is
Mhm.
where your data engineers and model engineers will connect to all the data sources, get the cut of the data, and that is where they have a graphical interface of preparing the data. Let's say
Right.
in typical scenarios, what we have seen is that you are prohibited to take production data to a UAT, dev, or a test kind of an environment because of the sensitivity of the data, and you don't have the right set of data available in your non-prod environments. So then there is a something called as capability like synthetic data generator, which takes the metadata or the schema of your production data and it generates a production like data which is not at all sensitive for you to test or build your models, work with your models in your dev, test, and UAT environment, build the logic and then promote it, use the deployment space that is available to promote it to your non-prod prod areas. And all these can be orchestrated using our orchestration pipelines. You can define various projects for each of these personas to work collaboratively on one single platform, so that eradicates, a data engineer use some XYZ tool, your all personas use each of their tools and bring this code in, and your prompt engineer works on the third tool and bring the, now imagine this chaos in an organization, right? So we are bringing all these personas on one single unified platform where they can use each other works, and the time to market increases drastically. So that is the value add that we bring onto the table, right? With watsonx.ai as a platform capability. The rule of the thumb remains same. Again, this entire platform can be hosted on an infrastructure of your choice. Now let's see. Now the time comes in terms of we then double click on what is this platform has to offer.
Mhm.
When on the left hand side you see you can select multiple models. By the way, the screenshot that you see is the cut from the tool, the product, which is our landing page. This is where you land onto, and what can you do with the platform is what you see on the left hand side. You can select various models as you see over here. So there are plethoras of models available, bundled out of the box, available to you from day one. And with our partnership with Hugging Face, Meta, and our own product, our own LLM, which is Granite, and I'll talk about it. There is a separate slide for Granite. But the point of or the fact of the matter is that you can pick and choose the model that you feel is best suited for a use case. You remember the five key truths of AI, the very first truth, which talks about multi-model and multimodal capabilities. So
Correct.
here you don't have to fixated yourself on one platform to solve all the answers. So sorry, I think, yeah. So you have multi models to for you to select the right set of model for which you think is best suited for your problem statement. We talked about Granite, and now Granite is IBM's own LLM, or I can say SLM, depending upon the use cases. The best part of the using Granite model is we indemnify our customer for any copyright claims against it. And what I mean by that is you pick any of the models, and you would seen a lot of incident in the past that XYZ regulator has put a claim or a I would say a penalty on XYZ model for using their own data which was copyrighted, right? So there are a lot
Correct.
of claims in the past. What we assure our customer, IBM customer, is that if they use IBM Granite model, we it is 100% copyright free or any indemnification. It covers you across any indemnification clause because these models are built with our watsonx.data, the tool which you have seen just few minutes back. So all
Mhm.
the known data performed, annotated, very well, cooked together and delivered as part of the platform. And you could see various flavors of these platform depending upon the use case that you want to solve, right? So again, we all talked about agentic AI, right? So a lot of agentic workflow, your language-based task, whether it is related to RAG or anything else, your code optimization or code assistant, geospatial. IBM is working, with NASA, and they have teamed up with NASA for uncovering a lot of patterns and trends in geographic data. Your safety related models, time series model has come out really well, and we have got some great feedback from our first hand from our customer. So these are all use cases that you can build on Granite model. If you don't wish to use Granite, there are other models available, as you have seen in this slide, right? So you can pick and choose the way you want. The other part is, okay, I have selected a model, but as we said in our second slide, right, less than 1% of data gets enterprise data gets used in decision making process. Now, how do you marry your enterprise data with a model that of your choice? It typically talks about how do you tune the model. Let's say you have picked a llama model or a granite model. Now you want to marry your organizational data. How do you do that? So InstaClab is a great capabilities that is available as part of our platform again, which helps you generate synthetic data, use techniques to merge the contribution and deploy this model. And this could be a model for your enterprise. And all the BUs within your enterprise can use this particular LLM or SLM to generate insight out of it, which is trained on your data, right? So again, that flexibility is available. Now, this tool does not only do Gen AI, it also, as we have discussed, right, those data scientist persona. What we have seen till here are the blue-eyed boy, the prompt engineers, the data scientists of the world. And this screenshot is actually for the citizen data scientist, the auto AI capability, where they can just pass the data to the tool, and tool will generate multiple pipelines, and it will select a champion pipeline out of various challengers. Not only that, you can just click on a particular pipeline and it generates the Python code, well drafted, well commented Python code that has gone behind the scene to, generate the output. So that's a zero black box. And then you can add human intelligence on top of machine learning intelligence, right? So these are the capabilities and the areas of agents, right? So where we talk about various forms of agents. Some are custom built agents. Again, we use watsonx.ai models to build custom agents. There are 1,000 plus pre-built agents available as part of the tool, which is Watson Orchestrate, which helps you create those agentic AI flow and multi-agent orchestration, right? So all these capabilities comes out are agentic AI capabilities, which we call it as watsonx.orchestrate, right? And of course, not just build part, but you can go ahead and deploy it on the same platform, generate it as a model. If it is a traditional ML model, you expose it as a REST API, and it can be integrated with any downstream use cases, right? So with that note, we have addressed two of our concerns area, right? One was the data challenge, the other was the skill set and AI challenge. What we are now going to cover is the AI governance aspect or the trust or ethical aspect of AI based decision making process. But before we do that, Shomik, I think it is time for another poll. So why don't we bring out our next poll question so that it helps us,
Sure.
yeah, taking it ahead.
All right. So we've got a second poll question. Considering the growing regulations around AI, which aspect of AI governance does your organization struggle with the most? Whether it's regulatory, risk assessment, life cycle tracking, approval workflows, or documenting facts? Again, five of the most common things that we have come across. We want to hear, which is your biggest governance headache. I was just curious, Harshil. Now, a couple of slides back, you took us through one that said, you can achieve 98% cost saving.
Yeah.
How were which aspects of it help you save cost when you compare it to traditional models?
Yes, so typically, and I'm glad that you brought out this point. Typically what we have seen is enterprise, and I can't name the competition, of course, on this call, but we have seen a lot of models which are multi-billion trained models, right?
Yeah.
We are talking about 80 billion trained model or more than 100 billions of parameters that goes behind the training. Now, at
Mm-hmm.
the time of inferencing or building use cases, what you do is you infer this model continuously. And typically, use of criteria is choice of usage is on SaaS, because most of the competition have their models or LLMs is only cloud available, right? So
Right.
the only one metrics to charge on cloud is token based consumption.
Hmm.
Now, when you are inferencing on these large models, that is where the cost shoots up like anything. So as a result, we have a granite model, which in compared to 80 billion, it is 4 billion trained parameter with right set of information available to it, and the best part is the accuracy is not compromised. So that's where the cost saving part, and DeepSeek is a classical example. You can, it's an SLM at the end of the day, which gives better result at low cost. So it's not just us or IBM talking about it. DeepSeek is a classical example, as I said, right? So that's where you cut down the cost, which is ever growing.
Right. All right, Harshal, I think we've got the answers. We've got the audience feedback for the second poll as well. Regulatory compliance is the biggest challenge. A third of the people say so, followed closely by risk assessment. Again, something that's in line with the expectations, Harshal.
Yes, absolutely. And the best part is, again, we are going to cover these aspects in section 4, right? And I'm glad that we have such an enthusiastic audience who have participating and throughout the session. But yeah, so coming back on the risk and the issues related to AI-based decision making process, while we have talked a lot about the benefits that AI brings, but as a well-known, dialogue, with great power comes great responsibility, right? So,
Hmm.
so there are a lot of potential risks that AI brings along with itself, right? And these are classified as some traditional risks which were always there with the AI ML approach that we had, but now there are a lot of new risks compared to, as like hallucination that you have, or
Right.
you say output biased, prompt based attack, prompt injection. These are all new risks that has emerged with the Gen AI, increase of Gen AI use cases, right? Which and the traditional risk which have amplified more is the data bias, uh,
Hmm.
data privacy rights, or and now when talk about India, there is a law on DPDP, right, which talks about
Correct.
data protection bill, which talks about using sensitively using the PII data, which also attracts very heavy fine in case if there is any breach of this rule. So
Correct.
these are various elements of risk that we categorized as regulatory risk, which most of our users or listeners have voted against, reputational risk and operational risk, right? And it is not just IBM that is amplified. It is a well-known problem. In fact, we talked about DPDP, but there is one such act in European region, right, which is called as EU AI Act, which also
Hmm.
talks about heavy penalties in case if there is any breach on or any violation of the regulation law that has been passed. And
Right.
73% leaders, or I say more than 70% leaders, are concerned about security risk, whereas more than 30% CXOs are, and these are some numbers, right? I'm not going to read it, but it is there for the audience to see and understand that this is a serious concern, and everyone across the globe has started talking about it, right? And hence it is required, it's an eye for AI, the phrase that I used in the initial start of the session becomes important. And why?
Right.
Because there are all these aspects that comes into the picture when you talk about AI based decision making process. There are multiple stakeholders involved. There are ever changing laws, regulations that are there. There is lot of data. There is risk to reputation in case if anything goes wrong. Then there are multiple tools, multiple types of data that comes across, and to have these bind all these things together as part of one single force is where AI governance and security comes into the play, where it connects all the stakeholders as part of one single thread. There is a proactive risk mitigation, a centralized dashboarding of entire AI based decision making process, automated model documentation, and this is one of the very big differentiator that we brought into the table, and consolidating multiple disparate tools as part of one single offering, right? So what do I mean by that? And before I even talk about this, for our, we mentioned DPDP, we mentioned EU AI Act. On 5th of August, RBI, which is a banking regulator, I'm sure most of you have be aware, have also released a draft bill on having a complete risk and governance framework across your AI-based decision making process
Correct.
on credit risk models, right? So our regulators are also thinking on front foot to have a lens or an eye over the AI-based decision making process. Now, to address this, we have IBM again, the third pillar, the strong pillar, and I think this is the last part of our webinar, is watsonx.governance. And when we talk about watsonx.governance, it's categorically caters to these three buckets that you see over here. One is to evaluate and monitor a complete model life cycle. When I talk about model life cycle, it talks about the capabilities that mentioned over here, right? Whether it is drift, bias, explainability, etc., etc. The other aspect is about documenting and having a model inventory across your enterprise. So if you are a chief risk officer, imagine a window or a screen where you get all the models, complete inventory fabricated across each BUs on one single screen. That is a
Mhm.
dream screen for any CRO to have, right? And documenting the artifacts or managing the metadata around each model. So that's model inventory. And the third aspect is a complete risk and governance framework. Whether it is a maker checker policy, a dashboard, which I talk about, or an incident management. All
Mhm.
these three pillars forms a strong AI governance, or I would say Watson X governance offering. Now, what I mean by that is, let's say if you build a model, and the best part about is we see all these three modules in isolation, while it is end-to-end holistic one platform, but at the same time it is modular in nature, and you can pick and choose the module depending upon where you are in your AI journey, right? So what I mean by that is, let's say if you have built your model using AWS stack, or let's say a Microsoft stack or a Google stack or any proprietary tool, you can
Mhm.
still have all these model governed at part of one single umbrella, which is watsonx.governance. So essentially what I'm trying to say is, irrespective of whether you have built or deployed your model anywhere, you can govern it at one single place using watsonx.governance, right? And it again collaborates all kind of personas, as you can see over here, right? Model owners, audit teams, compliance team, the model engineers, MLOps, the data scientists, prompt engineers, all these personas can work collaboratively on one single platform. The moment the model gets built or deployed, the documentation or the entire metadata gets captured in your inventory. It ensures that it sync with your risk and compliance policy. What I mean by that is, before promoting this model to, let's say, production, you can have a complete workflow based ecosystem available over here, where your model validation team can check, okay, what was the requirement, what are the key attributes, what is the result, what is the performance, all those personas, this evaluation metrics get documented over here, and they can see it, right? And when they say okay, then it gets to the next phase, and where it gets deployed or productionized. So this way you are minimizing your risk to reputation. You are calling all shots as part of one single tool. No Excel based or mail based communication. So it's all available as part of one single enterprise tool. And this is what I meant by it, right? Whether you deploy it on any of these tools that you see over here, you have one single
Mhm.
platform to govern it, be it model lifecycle, risk management, which was, I think, the highest voted, challenge from our viewers or listener, and then regulatory compliance, right? So all these
Correct.
capabilities are available. So AI fact sheet is something which captures model data, then observability and guardrails governs the complete life cycle, and this is a risk mitigation framework that you see. Now, I said, not just IBM deployed models, but you can deploy the models, let's say you have built outside. So in this case, it's a classical example, right? Where you are using, external data set, deploying model on any of these tools You can still integrate it with our IBM ecosystem or watsonx governance, and we can continue monitor the model performance, track the metrics, have the maker checker workflow in place, and you can still go ahead with it. Now, these are some of the screenshots which I've captured so that it gives you an idea about what tool we are talking about, right? So this takes care of a complete lifecycle governance. So you remember me talking about wherever the models are deployed. So this is one screen, and of course the view can be completely customized. Now, what this view tells us is that irrespective of wherever the models are deployed, whether it is IBM stack or any competitive stack, you can still govern it as part of one single module. You can have a matrices status. The moment you see any red mark, you can quickly click on it, and it's an interactive dashboard. It will take you to the model, to the issue that it was. Various BUs, etc., all can be part of this. This talks about your various metrics that you capture. Again, this is a RAG comparison, and this is a drift. So all those model lifecycle governance mechanism can be available, tracked as part of one single framework. So a key takeaway, essentially what we want to you to take away from this session is you can have one single platform to ensure that you build, train, validate, tune, deploy, but not only that, but also manage, monitor, and govern the complete life cycle is what we have with a strong database as part of the watsonx.data. So I think, yeah, Shomik, I hope I'm doing good on the time, but that ends the session. I hope it was useful for our listeners, and if any queries, feel free to reach out to us offline as well.
Sure. Yeah, I think that was a great session, Harshil, and we've got a lot of questions. I would want to take
Go ahead.
most of these questions and have them addressed. And yeah, you were right about the RBI circular, around AI. Very soon, we are going to see other institutions also start,
Yes,
imposing their own circulars. Be a matter of time before CERT also rolls out one. So
absolutely.
yeah, I think this is something that India needs to watch out for. All right, let's quickly get to the questions. And folks, I would want you to, hang around till the end of the webinar. We've got some excellent questions from our listeners here that can be absolutely applicable for you as well. Let's start with this. We've got a question from Mukesh G, who's asking us, how do you create indigenous foundation models and adopt a balanced governance approach to minimize risks while fostering innovation? So striking a balance between uh, indigenous foundation models and handling risks.
Yes, I think great question, right? And I think my last slide, where you see, right, where this is a right balance of having the right model in place. So I talked about model selection, right? It's not that the model, you can select a model that is available as part of out of the box, but you can also bring your own model, integrate with the tool, and start using it, and at the same time govern it completely, right? So bring your model, build your use case, at the same time govern it completely using the platform capabilities that you've seen, right? Whether it is, and of course there are 80 to 90 plus metrics out of the box available depending upon what use case you are doing. Whether you're doing a RAG use case where we have row score as one of the key metrics, whether you are doing an entity extraction generation, or a traditional ML where you want to identify the drift, the explainability, etc., etc. So I think the platform is one-stop solution for you to bring indigenous model, at the same time build your use case and have a complete governance ecosystem around it. So I hope that addresses your point.
Thanks, Harshil. All right, quick question from Rajesh Deshpande, who is asking us, can we get the presentation and case studies? Um,
Shomik, I
can they
think,
get in touch with you on LinkedIn, Harshil?
yeah,
Would you be able to share the
absolutely,
presentation with them over that?
absolutely, absolutely, we can do that.
All right. And some implementations and case studies, where would you direct them to?
We can connect offline. We have a lot of implementations and case studies available globally, sector wise, industry wise. So, depending upon your areas of interest, we can definitely take it to the next level of discussion.
Okay. We have a question coming in from Nupur, who is asking us, how will you recognize virtual data coming from which company or which organization?
That's an interesting question. So, when you are integrating data from multiple places, so first of all, data virtualization is a concept where you connect to the data source, get the processing done and get the result you store in the memory and you serve to the downstream ecosystem, right? uh, if the data is tagged well, there is a way that we can do it, but if it is not,
Mhm.
then we have something called as data active metadata management. What I mean by that is you do the discovery of the data while you are sourcing the data, and at that time you can define some auto assign a business tag to it, and again that is something that is available out of the box. So if you already have created a business glossary, you can import it, and the tool is intelligent enough to auto assign or auto tag the data depending upon the logic that you have derived. So you can either use a discovery capabilities which will auto tag, and also same time you can reassign or reattach the data which the tool will learn the next time. So let's say if you have a pattern and if you are integrating data from multiple repositories or source or organization, you will have to
Mhm.
have some key identifier. You just add it to your business dictionary, and the next time when you are doing data discovery, the tool is intelligent enough to tag it. And that's how you will define in your lineage as well, where you are tagging it to the consumption layer, and you can backtrace and identify it. I hope that addresses your point.
Thanks, Harshil. Um, some words of appreciation from our audience. We have Chandrasekhar Talati who's saying, thanks for a good informative session. And Nupur also gives IBM a thumbs up that you guys have responsible AI. So good going.
Thank you.
We got a
Yeah.
question coming in from Sumit Banerjee who's asking us, can he get a basic idea about the cost or the pricing aspect? Just some idea on how much an AI agent will cost. Can you give them a ballpark figure on this webinar, or would you want to take this offline, Harshil?
This would be a deep dive. So any discussion around cost is not like you do a session and you come to know. We need to
Yeah.
understand how many agents that we need to integrate to, what is the workflow that we need to automate to, and is there a need of a custom agent to be built or not. So there are various aspects. We do have a sizing questionnaire. Of course, you can get in touch with me or the team, and once we can jointly fill the sizing questionnaire, and we can come up with the overall cost of the prices.
All right, Sumit, I hope that answers your question. One from Roy Pereira, who's asking us, how about post-implementation support of the model? What do you have in IBM to address that, Harshal?
Yeah, so with IBM, I think post implementation support is the least of my concern, because we have banks, and banks, when we talk about banks, these are banks which holds more than 80% of Indian population of data, right? So you name the bank, and we have our solution implemented over there. And they have they could vouch for us that when IBM says or commits, they get solution to the problem. So I'm not making any false commit, but we have an excellent round the clock support available for our customers when it comes to post implementation. So need not worry about that, because you'll be covered as part of IBM's passport advantage when once you enroll and be our customer, and you will have a continuous round the clock support, as I say. So we have a following the sun kind of a supporting model around the globe. So your question will be not unattended, depending upon the priorities. Of course, you raise the questions.
All right. We've got one from Mukesh G, who's asking, will you emphasize on the need for democratized access to AI resources and capacity building while recognizing the importance of techno-legal frameworks? So tell us, you've been batting for democratized access to AI, and how does it also balance out with the techno-legal frameworks?
I think glad someone brought this out, because the whole idea of this end-to-end platform is democratize the data and AI ecosystem, right? And that's where, when I talked about watsonx.ai, the way it democratize multiple personas to come and use the platform in a self-service manner, and not just platform but underneath data as well. So the way the data is been cataloged as part of the tool, it gives you kind of a shop for your own data, or come and build your use case depending upon what your persona is. So those tools and capabilities is already baked in, and that is what our motto is, to democratize the complete usage of AI and data, because the custodian of this AI or data is now slowly moving from IT to the business user. And that is where we see the need of democratization. and the tool is completely aligned to that.
Right. Short questions here. We've got just two or three of them more to go. We've got one from Kamil Gupta who's asking us, how does your model differ from Gemini or Chat GPT or let's say DeepSeek as well?
Yeah, I think uh, you know, the very first part which I told about, the competition that you have mentioned, these are trained or multi-billion parameters. We have small built for purpose model in Granite, and there are various versions of Granite. Whether you talk about code assistant, we have Granite code assistant, then we have Granite reasoning, then we have Granite RAG. So there are specific SLMs created which helps you cut down the cost drastically, and it is fit for purpose, right? So and this again emphasize on the fact which I've told, that no one model is right suit for all your answers, right? So you need to have right set of models for each of the problem statement. The competition you mentioned typically approaches with an scenario that, okay, this is one stop solution for all use cases, which is why the number of billions of parameters are more, and hence the more the cost. IBM, we have a different approach. We have problem specific fit for purpose models which are lower on the cost, at the same time does not compromise on the performance. So depending upon what use case you select, we have the right set of models to pick and choose for.
Okay. Vijendra Veer has got a question on the AI ethics. So, what are the new set of upcoming challenges for AI ethics that organizations should be spending their time on? He's not worried about AI ethical issues that we already know at this point in time, but then he's looking for something that organizations may encounter 2 years down the line.
See, this is a good question, right? And that's where you would see a lot of regulations are forming to have that guardrails around AI based decision making process. If you talk about a kind of a ethical use of AI, ideal decision making process using AI could be, where it is a bias free, where it is drift free, it is explainable all the time, and it is trustworthy, right? So the moment you can have all these four pillars established for your AI based decision making process, I think that is what is taking us towards the ethical use of AI. And as you said, and one of my slide also talks about, there are a lot of new risks that are getting identified as we move along with this Gen AI. So, and I won't say it is a defined or a specific set. This is going to evolve. And the good part is that we have a platform. So we have already invested and we are leaders in it when it comes to have a ethical and responsible usage of AI. So it is not a short answer. It is ever evolving, but at the same time, we have right set of tools and technologies in place to mitigate it in a proactive manner rather a reactive approach.
Quick question from Ravi Kumar Kasanadhuni. Can you integrate this with Salesforce?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. And the last question we can possibly take is going to be from Kamal. AI automation or modeling is very high, is on a very high focus. Can we do a POC on the product?
Music to my ears. Bring it on. We
All
that
right, all right.
intention. So we would love to be partner with you in your journey, and our team will definitely get in touch with you to understand the use case, and we can have a POC to have the proof of the pudding.
All right. I think Anupam Sharma, who's asking about healthcare use cases, of course, I'm sure you can take the same route.
Yes,
They've got a lot of businesses with, tie-ups with US organizations,
yes,
and, they already know how it works with HIPAA. So I'm sure they can help you out with those case studies as well. All
absolutely.
right. That said, folks, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Harshil, for this brilliant session. I'm sure our audience enjoyed this as well. Audience
Uh,
members, thank you for your participation during the polls as well as the Q&A. We've got a lot of great questions coming in. Do remember to fill the feedback form that you're going to be getting at the end of this webinar. Keep an eye out on the ETCIO website. You'll be able to see a recording of this webinar in about a week or a week and a half's time. All right. So that's ETCIO signing off for now. Thank you and have a great day ahead.
Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye bye.